The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100 have been on an absolute kind of bomb, dropping. It's not what we're used to over the past few weeks. It was dominated by bricks and what's happening with the dollar and what's happening with the 30-year yield. Now, we've seen expectations look very good. We saw Janet Yellen today actually say we're on track, and this is what a soft landing looks like. We saw unemployment numbers come in lower once again, right? Everything that the Fed wants to happen is still kind of happening. However, we can't anticipate and we don't really know how to process what's happening overseas right now. And that's what we're kind of discussing in this video, how to attack this market for the coming week and what to expect so you're not taken off guard. There's a few big things and a few question marks that you need to have on the top of your list. Let's get to it. Before we do anything else, I do want to shout out the newsletter right now. This comes out every single Sunday at 10 a.m. Central. It goes over everything so you can see what's happening. There will not be no Discord spots available, just to let you know. But it has the SPY, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq for futures, and then Qs as well. We try to give you everything so you're prepared for the week and as we're coming out. Give you AMD, a few of our key stocks that we're liking, some of the best setups. We're not selling you anything. It's all absolutely free. We like to give a lot of free information here, so make sure you're tapped in with us. It's absolutely free. The link is down below. Normally, I go over the Nasdaq first, but I want to cover what's happening with the 30-year yield. And I talked about this the other day. When you got out of this range, you were looking for the 200 SMA, and that's where you are now. And you're bouncing back on the 30-year yield, something that you're not necessarily used to. You have a few of these levels coming in as well. You go over to something like the dollar, and again, a very strong bounce. You have the 200 SMA up here as well, which you have not tested. Okay, you can see this whole level of illiquidity. This is one of the new features from Chart Prime as well. So things you got to be watching, right? You still have room, in my opinion, back to 103.45. And we saw, if you go to the 2 hour, you've seen a lot of this volatility. So this is the interesting part. You go to the daily, and it's really quick. You see how the dollar is just all over the place? This is one of the toughest areas to trade in my opinion, because when the dollar is moving back and forth like this, the market doesn't know how to interpret it, right? And you're sitting in an area with a lot of indecision, and it's just very dangerous. So again, you go to something like the Nasdaq, and we look at what's taking place here, and you can see the market has not liked this whatsoever. And then ultimately today, it was a lot of back and forth, which I believe, even though we closed green, it was more of a bearish day overall for myself looking at the market. Again, you have downside, in my opinion, towards 16.2 still. Very, very likely. We're going to go into some smaller time frames, and what you're going to see here is we're still just making the lower lows and lower highs so far. Now, to end the day, it wasn't that bad, right? In comparison to previously where we opened up, but still, nevertheless, you're still doing the same thing. Lower lows, lower highs, and that's really the scale of what's happening here, okay? And now SPY going into Qs, everything like that, I still think you have downside room 465. And I'm going to tell you right now, my big guess, my big assumption is if we start to get more downside, where I would think a bottom would show up or would prevail, would be down towards 460. Okay, 460 on SPY is what I'd be looking for, right? 459, 460 locally down here, right? That'd be almost picture perfect, right? The break, the retest, the break back up. That's like picture perfect what you'd like to see. Now, you would have loved to see that on previous all-time highs, but you did not get that. You just pushed back down, okay? So, again, Qs, similar. You're looking more towards, in my opinion, like 387. But, yeah, you're kind of already coming into these previous lows that we had back here as well. As you can see, like right here, like 394, 395, but you're not there yet. And as you can tell as well, we go to like the 2 hour. You can also see you're grinding below VWAP and you're grinding below the 90 MA, just making those lower lows and lower highs. But you might be getting a little bit of a, a little bit of a wedge. So that's something to consider. I'm going to go into a few more things here in a second regarding some of the patterns that we're kind of forming out here. Okay. I don't like to jump to conclusions. I like to see the data that's coming in and then make my projections based on that. Okay. Now, before we go into that, I ask you to do two things. Consider liking and subscribe. Helps out tons. Appreciate all love and support. Monday through Friday videos for you, so you are prepared. Okay. Now, when we're looking at this action, okay, like I said, when the dollar is moving this volatile back and forth, it's very difficult. You don't want a dollar that's just pinballing back and forth, and you don't want a dollar that's moving very quickly to the upside. When the dollar's moving very quickly to the upside, you're going to get bent out of whack. Now, what I will say right now, even though the dollar's been moving pretty bullishly, what I will say is the market's been very resilient in comparison to last year. Okay, last year when the dollar moved like this, you got instant drops, big drops across the board. So that's not happening here, okay? You're trying to hold up, especially like today. I think today and yesterday you get to really see that. Now, granted, you moved down over the course of the 2 days, but overall, you saw the fight back and forth, right? You're not just going straight down. even though these are some very illiquid zones. We've covered that quite a bit as well. So again, we're going to look a little bit deeper at those things, and then we're also going to take a look at some of these equities that I'm liking as well. Also, too, if you're looking at those indicators I have on my screen as well, those links are down below so you can check those out specifically for the futures and some of these equities. Now, I want to jump in really quick though. So we got a good grasp on where NQ is and how you're moving. And again, like you look at some of these wicks here, like on the higher time frames, 2 hour, 4 hour, like buyers are trying to hold you up, right? They're trying, right? So, and you're seeing the clear like back and forth as well. The Fed is telling you one thing, the rest of the world is telling you another. So markets are trying to price it all in, right? And again, I think the bottom will be established once Powell and once data comes out strong again. So CPI, PPI, PCE, and then as well as Fed Powell talking. Those are the things that are going to cause a bottom to form, in my personal opinion there. Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper. So that's what you're trying to balance. You're trying to hold this key level that we had mentioned from yesterday as well, around 16.45 locally. Like, I mean, all in all, pretty decent. You did get rejected at 16.6. So I think the going notion is still of downside, but again, I don't think that it's quote unquote guaranteed here, right? I want to say that right now. Now, number one, Tesla. I want to talk a little bit about Tesla before I let you guys out of here before we go too far. Tesla, we talked about the bear flag yesterday. You're kind of breaking down out of it, sitting below VWAP. You're looking for that 230 to 232 touch, the 200 SMA, and the bottom of that range that we previously had established. One of my favorite names out here. Keep it on your chart. Got to be watching it pretty aggressively. Apple. So today, some pretty interesting movement. Now, we mentioned this yesterday also. We want to see that touch of the 200 SMA. You got really close, so congratulations if you traded that. You're making lower highs here, as you can see as well. Clearly on the downside, right? They have news continuing to come out. This is all bearish things on them, so make sure you keep your head on a swivel there. Before I go any further as well, semiconductors. This is like the strangest part of the market right now. So if you remember, like we've been watching NVIDIA, we've been waiting for I still think NVIDIA is incredibly bullish. I still think it wants to rocket. Very bullish on the name. Okay. Now, what I'll say, okay, NVIDIA, like we kept going, rejected over and over at 500. Semiconductors are still very, very bullish. And of all the names that we've seen move over the past day or two, NVIDIA has been probably the strongest, right? Really showing out today and yesterday. Okay. AMD also bouncing off that level down here. You didn't get quite to 132, but you're still in the realm of it and you're bouncing very strong. AVGO, probably the weakest of all the semiconductors. I still believe, though, AVGO could easily start to come back down into that $1,000 range, right? A good, for instance, is something like LRCX, manufacturer of a lot of these semiconductor parts. We traded LRCX to the upside, but look how fast it came back down to 730 from around 800 very quickly in around 3 days. So again, I still think AVGO could do this. I'm still watching it very closely. You're just slowly grinding down. You want to see volatility kick in. I mean, we've gone a lot over this and like really try to demonstrate how you don't have that much liquidity until you get to, at least 1035. And then from 1030 on, it's basically nothing to 1,000. So again, very interesting. Got to be watching it. Still think AVGO has downside potential. But again, what I'm saying, keep your head on a swivel because semiconductors underlying are still very strong. I didn't even get to see Microsoft here at the end of the day. I wasn't even paying attention to this. But here on the daily, again, Microsoft is one of those setups that I think has a lot of potential. If you start to get back below these levels, again, very quickly to 360, very quickly after that to 350. So again, the setups are coming there. The setups are still there for the downside when I start to look at a lot of these things across the board, right? So I don't think stocks are just that strong yet. We haven't seen enough to get really bullish. So again, I look at what's happening here with Amazon. Really big break. You break, you're retesting. If you lose this level, it's going to get ugly to the downside, right? Could get ugly very, very quick. So you're going to see the same thing. Again, this is just the way that it's going here. Meta. Strong reaction from that previous level, right? I would say this is like equivalent to Microsoft's 366, 367 level, right? That's what I'd be looking at this as. Bouncing off of it. If this gets back below 342, it's going to get ugly. But I will say Meta is one of the stronger names out there along with NVIDIA. Meta, NVIDIA, those are like really strong tech names right now. If I look across the board, though, the best sector still has to be Dow with what's happening with XLV, XLI, XLF, those names are all still killing it. The only things that are really getting a pullback are XLK, which is tech heavy. So again, XLK is coming back into a pretty major support, the 181 level. So it's like a catch-22 with where you're at. One thing that I'd be watching, though, going back to Apple, is if you get back below the 200 SMA. If you get below the 200 SMA, things will get weak very, very quick. You need to keep that on your watch list. Need to be watching very, very close. I want to highlight something before we even get out of here. Okay, so when I'm looking at downside plays, I don't blindly jump into the market on Monday, Tuesday, whatever day it is, okay, and then say I'm going short. I have to make sure that the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 line up with my thesis on whatever equity. I don't counter trade the indexes. If the indexes are moving bullish, then I'm usually not trading short, or I'm sitting on the sideline. Now, right now, I'm favoring the short side based on the opportunity potential. There are some names out there, like I said, like Meta, that are bouncing off supports. NVIDIA, if it breaks over 500, very bullish, right? So these are things that could happen, right? But it all comes back down to how the market prices in the dollar, 30-year yield, and do those stop running up. They're at major points right now. They're hitting brick walls, but they've shown resilience. Today, you started the day at the 30-year hitting the 200 SMA. You rejected down hard and bounced right back above it. So those are things that you have to be taking into account. I have to respect the indicators that I'm using every single day here. So underlying right now, if I had to say bullets, gun to the head, I'm looking at potentially downside to start next week. You need to get data. I can only say so much. The thing that's going to change the game across the board is when Powell comes back out, reaffirms his thesis on the market, says that we're moving towards a soft landing, we look really good, rate cuts could be coming very soon, etc. That's what you want to hear him say, right? And then you also want to see CPI, PPI, and core inflation to head to the downside, right? Those, in my opinion, could stop the dollar from running quickly and really get yields back on the downside run. Because again, getting below and holding below 4% on the yields is the overall goal. Because once that happens, I believe you're very, very bullish on everything. Anything and everything is going to be very bullish at that point in time. That's what I'm looking at. If you have questions, comment down below. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.